If you depend on Colorado River water, you might assume senior water rights protect you. But in the West, those rights can be bypassed by a 3-inch fish. Western water law rests on prior appropriation, meaning first in time, first in right. The Colorado River feeds 40 million people, 30 tribes, and irrigates 5.5 million acres. In 1922, the Colorado River Compact divided the basin at Lee Ferry and allocated 7.5 million acre-feet annually to each half. The 1928 Boulder Canyon Act, the 1944 Treaty, and Arizona versus California built a system for human consumption. But environmental health was mostly ignored. Then the 1973 Endangered Species Act and NEPA changed the rules. If wildlife law says a dam release threatens a protected species, it can be delayed or modified in court. The key flashpoint is Glen Canyon Dam. The canyon is the last biodiversity stronghold for native fish, especially the humpback chub, reclassified from endangered to threatened in 2021. For years, cold water released from the dam suppressed predators and kept invasive smallmouth bass from reproducing after their 1982 introduction. Falling water levels changed that. At 3,530 feet above sea level, Lake Powell's warm surface layer lines up with penstocks, the pipes that feed turbines. That creates a pathway for bass to slip through and colonize downstream. A lower lake changes temperature, fish movement, and legal risk all at once. To avoid penalties, managers use cool mix flows, 3,374 feet deep, to bypass warmer intakes at 3,470 feet and keep downstream temperatures below 16 degrees, which helps prevent bass spawning. But bypassing turbines means losing power, and utilities hate that. If Lake Powell falls toward the minimum power pool of 3,490 feet, turbines go silent, and the burden shifts to outlet tubes. Those bypass tubes were not built for continuous high-pressure releases, creating structural risk. Because the government failed to install fish screens required by the 2016 agreement, environmentalists have a clear litigation target. In short, fish biology can decide how the dam operates. The same pressure reaches Colorado. There, 2,000 projects depend on the 15-mile reach above the Gunnison River Junction, a stretch critical for endangered razorback suckers and pike minnows. Meeting mandates requires daily releases to hit a late summer target of 810 cubic feet per second. Colorado transferred $600,000 from its water fund, $205,500 for fish recovery, and $300,000 for court battles. A review arrives in 2028, backed by a $3.9 million study and $755,000 in partner services, with guidelines finalized by 2030. If targets tighten, rights shrink. Downstream, the Multi-Species Conservation Program protects 27 species across 18 areas to shield diversions. As reservoirs fell, the Bureau secured an amended biological opinion in April 2024, expanding permitted cuts from a base of 1.574 million acre-feet per year to 3.0 million acre-feet through January 31, 2028. California, Arizona, and Nevada rely on this 3.0 million acre-feet buffer. Because without it, holding water in Lake Mead could dry riparian zones and trigger lawsuits. Even shortage plans need wildlife approval first. Environmental law also turns infrastructure budgets into legal minefields. Denver Water finished 60% of a $500 million project to raise Gross Dam by 131 feet, when a late 2024 injunction invalidated permits under the Clean Water Act and NEPA. To protect a related $2 billion reservoir, leaders agreed to a $100 million settlement, leaving Gross Dam abandoned and hundreds of millions stranded. Utah's 141-mile Lake Powell pipeline, designed to pump 86,249 acre-feet annually to Washington County, has been stalled since 2020. Its cost rose from $1.4 billion to $2.24 billion. Rate hikes of 357% to 500%, home fees over $30,000, and taxes up 54%, risk demand destruction. Steel tariffs added $128 million, while removing recovery turbines wiped out $65 million annually. The Green River Exchange pushes the issue toward climate precedent. Developers were approved to draw 3.5 billion gallons annually for Uinta Basin oil shale. Environmentalists sued, appealing to the 10th Circuit, after models predicting a minor 300 cubic feet per second difference ignored modern warming. A ruling requiring climate factors could freeze upper basin permits. Meanwhile, bypasses to cool the chub forced WAPA to buy replacement power, costing $15 million to $20 million annually. Wholesale electricity at Palo Verde surged from $43 to $78 in 2022. WAPA raised Salt Lake Project O&M by $8.453 million, moving the budget from $103.095 to $111.548 million, while purchase power rose from $833,000 to $1.136 million. Hoover Dam's 2024 base charge rose 11.3%, from $66.8 million to $74.3 million. Wildlife mandates have also raised conservation costs. Under the System Conservation Pilot Program, fallowing prices rose from $180 per acre-foot between 2015 and 2018 to $425 in 2023. Federal spending reached $16.1 million to secure 37,810 acre-feet. Lower basin agreements cost $157.2 million to Phoenix and Tucson, $150 million to the Gila River Indian Community, and $600 million to the Imperial Irrigation District. But drying fields cuts runoff to the Salton Sea, exposing toxic pesticide-laden dust. In late 2024, that dust triggered CEQA lawsuits. So saving water in one place can create a new legal fight downstream. This environmental veto is not new. In the 1970s, the snail darter halted Tellico Dam, leading to 1978's TVA versus Hill, where the court stopped an 80% complete dam. Benefits of $6.25 million were eclipsed by $7.25 million in costs, while $40 million in farmland was destroyed. In the 1990s, the spotted owl blocked logging. Companies predicted 130,000 lost jobs, but actual losses were 16,000 to 32,000, causing a 14% timber job drop. The 1994 Northwest Forest Plan shifted 24.5 million acres to protection. Texas's English rule of capture ended after Sierra Club versus Lujan in 1991, which argued pumping threatened Comal and San Marcos Springs' fountain darter and blind salamander. Senate Bill 1477 then created the Edwards Aquifer Authority and an $18.6 million program. Other basins show the same pattern. Klamath Basin farming collapsed in the 2001 drought, when biologists shut off irrigation for coho salmon and suckerfish. By 2021, allocations fell to zero to keep Upper Klamath Lake below 85 degrees and prevent toxic algae. Delta pumping limits hit in 2007 and 2008, when Judge Oliver Wanger cut exports to protect Delta smelt, forcing the 2009 Delta Reform Act and a $20 billion pipeline. In the Columbia Basin, a 2022 report concluded that saving salmon requires breaching 4 dams on the lower Snake River, costing $11.2 billion to $19.6 billion, and up to $77 billion under high-end scenarios. That brings the fight back to post-2026 negotiations. Upper basin states refuse cuts until the lower basin absorbs 1.5 million acre-feet in evaporation and transit losses. In May of 2026, lower basin leaders proposed saving 3.2 million acre-feet, including 1.25 million of core reductions. Arizona carrying 760,000 acre-feet, California 440,000, and Nevada 50,000, with a 3% evaporation tax on stored water. Conserved water is accessed only when Lake Mead sits below 1,025 feet, falling to zero at 1,000 feet. The government's $238 million pledge to the Gila River Indian community softens the pain. But lower basin states also demand a structural risk plan for Glen Canyon Dam and written consent, using vulnerabilities for leverage. The old story said, water rights decide who gets the river. The new story is harder. Ecological health is the boundary, deciding whether the system can function at all.